So with that, I will turn it over to Scott with Perdue to talk about regenerative ag and low carbon products.
Great. Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. Just a really great presentation. It's going to be tough to follow that one up. So that one was near and dear to my heart as well. So my name is Scott Raubenstine. I work for Perdue AgriBusiness. We are the grain side of Perdue, working with over 9,500 farmers, along the East Coast here. And, our vision here at Perdue is to be the most trusted name in food and agricultural products. So really appreciate the opportunity to present today. Today's presentation is sort of a follow-up from the 24 summit. We were really green as it relates to these new carbon markets, and I'd like to share sort of an update today and what the future might look like related to a very similar story to the Crothers family in the aspect of how does sustainability tie into the activities you do across a huge value chain, and how do you connect that consumer to the farmer and be able to communicate that great story we just heard. So a great tie-in, I think, as we move forward here. So a little bit about Perdue Farms for those on the call that may not know who Perdue is. As I mentioned, we were founded in 1920 by Arthur and Pearl Perdue. We're just under 10 billion in sales, 20,000 associates, 7,300 active farmers that we work with on a weekly, daily, monthly basis. We're excited about that. We're approaching 2,000 poultry farmers. We do hogs as well, and we also have beef cattle. So we are diversifying our protein channel and privately held as well. Our new CEO, Kevin McAdams, has a new top line vision for raising a better future. And, it supports our vision to be the most trusted name in food and agricultural products. Stewardship is one of our core values, being quality, integrity, teamwork, and stewardship. Building that trust in a brand is super important for us. And our commitment to our consumers, our customers, the care of our animals and our communities will help support that stewardship, especially as we share these natural resources. In looking at these environmental markets, is how I'll refer to them, we see some external trends over the next 5 years in terms of decarbonization. We have an evolving customer, and that's really driven by the ability to capture and access data quickly. And they're desiring cleaner food. They want to know how it's produced. They want to know that it's safe for their family. They want to know that it's a healthier option. So we're keeping an eye on that. Pursuing sustainability, over 267 companies in the S&P 500 actually have an emission target or have set goals to reducing their footprints on the products that they produce. We also see a shifting supply chain, reducing transportation fuel in the supply chain, super critical. How do we manage freight? How do we become more efficient? How do we take trucks off the road, moving from truck to rail to barge opportunities? And we'll talk a little bit about that in a future slide. And then expanding government impact, right? Future SEC reporting, it's going to be part of the game as we move forward. There's still some verdicts out, I guess, on low carbon fuel and the 45Z. I think it's a really great opportunity for us to continue our sustainability and work, and a revenue possibility for farmers as well. So we'll see how this expanding government will impact that. And 37% of the U.S. consumers look at sustainability and say that will influence what they buy. I mentioned the companies committed to this mass adoption of emission goals. And no matter if there was an administrative change, the ones that we're speaking with feel strongly about sustainability, and it builds brand support and equity with the consumer as well. 90% of our U.S. farmers are aware of regenerative ag practices. The operational and financial incentives will help further support that adoption of these practices. And the U.S. government funding has, certainly gone up over the last couple of years, and we'll see how that moves forward with clean energy opportunities. In talking with food manufacturing and retailers, Kellogg's is sourcing renewable resources like wind, sun, and geothermal heat. Pepsi would like 100% renewable electricity in operations by 2030, and they're requiring their suppliers to have a science-based targets in terms of reducing their emissions footprints. Kraft Heinz introduced fully recyclable packaging through sustainably managed forests, reducing the CO2 footprint by 20% in their packaging. Walmart, you heard about the Gigaton Challenge, big customer of Perdue as well, and they seem to be on track with their goals, and really big opportunity there with a big retailer. Target 30% absolute reduction in supply chain emissions from 2017 base year. I had a chance to spend a little time with the VP of operations at Target. They've finally have one carbon neutral store in California. They put the installed solar panels over their parking lots, so their customers actually park under the solar panels. That feeds the entire facility of its electrical needs and has the ability to sell back to the grid. They also set up about 13 stations in the back of the store where they recycle hangers that are broken, old clothing, cardboard, trash for waste diversion, and they're really focused on reducing their emissions across their value chain. You know, the broken hangers go back to the suppliers that get reground up and then shipped back to Target. So really great opportunity there to continue to look at your footprint and develop some efficiencies, reuse products at that time where it makes sense. Aldi, Costco, Albertsons, all of them have a science-based target. They have goals in terms of reducing their emission footprints by 2030, and they're all engaged in this new environmental market. Our commitment at Perdue, we're committed to being responsible stewards, soil, healthy planet, and healthy food. And part of our journey here, we really kicked off our sustainable journey almost 10 years ago. We've been tracking scope 1 and 2s, which are the direct and indirect purchases of fossil fuels to run our businesses. So we have a really great baseline for that. Scope 3s are those emissions that would involve purchasing the products that purchasing the ingredients of the products that you produce, sort of upstream and downstream. And so we're working on tracking those scope 3s as well and working with our suppliers and downstream partners. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. 2016, we actually tied sustainability metrics to compensation plans with an environmental scorecard that we're really proud of. We set goals in 2018 to reduce GHG emissions by 30%, water use by 25%, and to have 90% waste diversion. And we're on our pathway to that. Green gas, we are capping our lagoons and pumping renewable gas back into the grids as well. We have one location complete. We have another that we have slated to open up here at the end of 25. And in 23-24, we partnered with Climate Partner and Bayer Crop Science to develop climate-friendly ag practices and really better track our overall footprint related to grain production. When we look at our scope 3s, over 60% of our scope 3s come from purchasing grain and producing feed to feed our chickens. So it's a really great opportunity for us to work with the farmers, connect those farmers to the products that we produce, and communicate their great work to that consumer. And in 25, we're engaged with Sustainabase. This is a corporate emissions database that's going to track our scope 1, 2, and 3 and allow us to really look at the facilities and understand how we can use sustainability and drive efficiencies that'll directly correlate to bottom line improvement and allow us to manage waste data and water usage, et cetera, across our value chain. Data transparency and verification. I mean, in our corporate goal development, data is really key, and it's going to be a key to the future. We have to be able to embrace it. We have to make sure it's private. We have to secure it, and we have to use it to make really great decisions as it relates to environmental sustainability goals. And we need that verification for downstream partners because we are changing the paradigm of a supply chain. I think we heard in the earlier presentation that it's sometimes you get caught up in this competition and you're trying to outdo each other, and we're thinking, geez, let's invite those partners together and collaborate and build a supply chain that can drive efficiency and transparency and efficiency. Because if the farmer's more efficient, we're more efficient, and our downstream customers become more efficient, and the entire supply chain becomes efficient. So it's a little bit of a change in paradigm. And so we're asking downstream partners to work with us in investment and in measuring the data across our value chain. And we're committed to setting these climate goals. So we have gotten management approval to set science-based targets, and we're going to continue to drive these improvements across the value chain, minimizing that environmental impact on the products that we produce. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about regenerative ag and how we see low carbon products in the future. In terms of regenerative ag goals, we want to support our farmers by removing complexity in data. We would like to build that supply chain partnering network with downstream partners, NGOs, and farmers. We really feel that this program can scale over the next 2 years to support our downstream products and consumers. We want to deliver a verified Scope 3 emission reduction related to the products that we produce. And we've developed some environmental KPIs too, regenerative ag KPIs, revolving around soil, biodiversity, water conservation, animal welfare, circularity, and our direct relations with farmers. And we'll talk about them shortly as well. So healthy soil, healthy animals, healthy farmers is really the core to our regenerative ag. And we would like that collaboration across this ecosystem to thrive. So we thank our farmers for working with us. It's a big job. It's a scary job. It's an unsure job. It's not a sure thing. And you have to pivot, right? And that's really, really great message there in terms of being flexible and don't give up. Just keep moving forward. And you know, healthy food really starts at that farm level. Without the farmer, we don't have a product to create. So, you know, we'd like to lead in animal care. We don't use antibiotics because of the way we raise our chickens. Quote by Jim Perdue, the quality, no antibiotics ever, no animal byproducts, nutrient-dense grain from sustainable practices we feel will create a better tasting chicken. And, you know, my grandmother used to say, son, you are what you eat. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. So we truly think that we're out to prove that. And we think this is a really great approach. Innovation, enrichments in our houses. Over 50% of our barns have lighting, on-farm access, you know, biosecurity, super, super important. How do we manage data? How do we know what's going in and out of our facilities? We're working to track all that data in terms of new innovation related to taking care of our animals. Taking care of our planet. You know, we have the opportunity to be the first generation that achieves sustainability. Let's take it. Hannah Ritchie, just a really great environmentalist. And, you know, I think we have the technology, we have the resources, we just have to have that will. We have to have that resiliency to not quit and keep working and understand where the holes are, right? I always tell my son, boy, you can take a coffee can as a piggy bank and you can shove as much money in the top of it as you can. But if there's no bottom in the hole in terms of spending, it's just going to go right through, right? So I think we have to have that will and resiliency to continue to work together to shore up the holes, do proper investment, and get the ROI on true climate impact. And I think we can, this agricultural sector has such an opportunity to make a huge difference. And it all starts with working as a total supply chain and with the farmer. So when we look at low carbon products, it really opens up an opportunity for us to collaborate across the value chain. We feel delicious food takes thoughtful farming. It starts with implementing sustainable conservation. It works with measuring the footprints, understanding your footprint, you know, how you impact the environment as you move forward in the products that you produce is super critical for Perdue. And then producing those low carbon products that can communicate to the consumer and tie that farmer directly to the consumer on the great things that we're working on to preserve these natural resources for future generations. And I think it's a great story. We need to communicate it. We need to talk more to consumers and let them understand, you know, sustainability is very, very important. So we invite downstream partners to innovate with us as we go along this journey. We're really unique as a company because we're vertically integrated. And so we do deal with farmers, We handle that grain, we refine it, we can crush it, we can turn it into feed products to feed our chickens. We work with feeding chickens and nutrition, all the way through processing and producing food packaging. So we feel we have the platform that we can communicate and really connect that farmer to the consumer and really develop and communicate responsible food and agricultural practices. And so as we journeyed on our carbon footprinting and we followed the GHG protocol, we used a third party called Climate Partner. We took our expansive value chain here and we broke it down into business segments. So we have the grain farming portion, elevator portion, refining, all the way through to the consumer. And we've measured the emissions related to energy used, ingredients used, waste byproducts, transportation moving products here and there at each stage. And we've developed on a per kilogram or even a per pound basis of carbon dioxide equivalent per pound of product that we produce. And what that allows us to do is really target those areas across the value chain that we need help with. You can see grain is an opportunity. Transportation, both inbound and outbound to consumers and retailers, is important. Where we don't have primary data, since we control the supply chain, we have the ability to capture primary data. We're working on some new AI technology to capture data throughout the value chain here to improve this emission number. If we don't have primary data, we have to use what's called secondary data, which is from a life cycle analysis database called EcoInvent. And you can see from our broiler farming, we don't have a really great data as it relates to moving that product from farm to our facilities. So we're looking at ways to implement data collection there, data collection on the farm. We're looking at a B100 pilot in terms of testing a fully almost 99% sustainable soy-based biofuel in 6 vehicles this summer. And then, of course, as it relates to packaging, how do we create compostable packaging that is right-sized for the consumer to reduce food waste? And food waste is a big emissions footprint item. And right now, we need data on that as well. So we're working on ways to communicate with consumers to understand how long they cook the chicken, what type of utensil or instrument they're using. Is it an oven? Is it an air fryer? How much of that chicken do they consume? And try to design products that help minimize food waste and are more sustainable for the environment. So we're looking at opportunities for that in the future. Right now, we have 2 verified carbon footprints as of 2 weeks ago. So a boneless, skinless breast, we have footprinted from seed to fork. And we have those emissions by value chain segment. And also refined soybean oil. This oil goes into a lot of snack food companies in terms of processing chips and chicken nuggets and all kinds of salad dressings, bakeries. And so we've got these 2 products fully certified by a third party called SCS Global Services. And they take a look that we're following GHG protocol. They look at every piece of data that we put into this footprint to verify the accuracy all the way back to the invoices on the electric that we use to produce the product. So we're pretty excited that we've got our first 2 products under our belt. We only have 368 more to go. So we are working on how do we create these footprint measurement tools across our value chain. You can see here sort of a future rendition possibly of that boneless, skinless breast. You can also see the value chain segment there and its proportion to the emissions footprint. That lighter blue bar there is from grain farming. So it is a large portion, as I mentioned, from seed to producing feed that we can work on. And we also have it broken down by the type of greenhouse gas. So we got fossil, biogenic, and land use as well. So we understand that full realm of emissions related to producing that product. We have the same thing on oil. You can see that light blue bar there again is the soy farming portion, drying and crushing being the next 2 bars moving forward. And then, of course, refining adds another level of emissions. And we're excited to work with our downstream partners on low carbon oil in the future as well. This yellow bar here is actually the cover crops, the removals related to producing soybean oil. So this would be grain farming from cover crop usage, etc. That's what the bar below the line means. That means we're actually removing CO2 from the environment. So as I mentioned, we really need data, right? And we need to help our farmers, whether it's on the grain side of the business or on the poultry side of the business, capture data. And we need that data to measure this footprint across our value chain from seed to fork. So we're working on an app for farmers, and this app doesn't need to be a high tech app here in the aspect of a true precision ag software. This app we want to design to make it very, very easy for the farmer to provide data that's required to produce an emission factor number, as well as a carbon intensity score for the grains that they're producing, especially if there's a 45Z sustainable renewable fuel opportunity here in the future. So we want to make sure our farmers are ready for these markets as they um, grow the grain on their farm. And so this app will be able to utilize basically GIS location. It'll track where that farmer is, where those fields are that are enrolled in our program. The farmer can take a picture of a fertilizer invoice, and AI will extract the data that we need to calculate the footprint of the product and create a GHG score for that crop, for that field, for that farm. And we plan to create a dashboard as well and provide integrated farmer data tools that they can obviously make adjustments on this dashboard and see how it affects their footprint. We're going to track that grain as it goes into grain handling. The traceability, especially in products headed to Europe and around the world, we need to verify it's not coming from a deforested acre. And through that verification requires that boundary. It requires how that crop was produced. So we need to be prepared to handle that too. But it's an opportunity too for the farmer to earn additional revenue in these environmental markets. And then we have to track it through our processing. And at the end of the day, we want to be able to put it on a product, put it on a flow code or a barcode that can communicate a great story on how that bird or product was produced, and be able to share the impact that we've had on that environment in full transparency to create a trusted low carbon product in the future. You know, this EarthSmart app, what we're designating it, takes about 5 minutes to set yourself up. It's a mobile app for farmers. You can import and integrate data. Limited data required. We want to try to reduce the amount of data points and allow AI to calculate the other data points that we can use from aerial imagery, we can use from science-based studies, and we want to make it very, very easy to organize this data for farmers. The app you can actually talk to. You can say, I'm entering field 27. I'm going to apply 200 pounds of ammonium sulfate, and my begin time is 9:30. You can talk to the app and say you're finished applying this fertilizer at 10 a.m. and it will extract that data from your verbal communication and dump it into our calculator that'll calculate this emission number. So we're pretty excited. We're in our third beta version of this. We're going to actually introduce it at a Soil Summit, Sustainability Summit on March 5th. So anybody's welcome to come. Just email me. We'd be glad to have you. And it's in Ocean City, so not too far away. And we're pretty excited. We'll have a demonstration on the app as well. As I mentioned about these environmental markets, it's about carbon scoring the grain that's coming and tracking that grain through the manufacturing process to create a fully traceable product. You know, showing the food safety, showing the sustainability, and communicating that to consumers. The platform that is behind this is proprietary. We built it, and it actually will show you by field your GHG. This is just a snapshot of the software and the dashboard that you'll be able to see. And it'll break it down by the emission type, by crop, by farm. It'll also validate that the vegetation change, deforested acre. You can see this field down here in the lower right-hand corner. There's no red. If a field shows up in red, then it's been deforested since 2020. And we utilize the Global Forest Watch database and some USDA data layers to verify that those acres have not been deforested. And we are required to provide that on the grains, the soy grains that we ship to Europe. And so we've introduced a regenerative ag program back in 22. We're in our third year now. We offer $10 an acre for no-till, $10 an acre for cover crops. You know, there is some data here that needs to be collected, some verification, on-farm verification of cover crop being planted, no-till practices occurring. Those bushels are to be delivered to Perdue because we are creating a downstream product at the end of the day. My apologies for moving there. So there is a little bit of data tracking, and you can certainly go to Perdue.foreground to take a look at what that program looks like if you have an interest. We'd love to have you. And then we look at the sustainability program in terms of providing three sort of pillars of value for farmers. We want to bring like-minded community together and share evidence-based field studies as it relates to regenerative ag practices. In our first year, we implemented an additionality where we required it to be a brand new practice. And that really, farmers did not react very well to that. And, you know, it was our first program. So we really were unsure following the protocol guidelines. We've now made the decision to include everybody in that program because we truly feel that bringing that like-minded community together, letting folks that have done no-till and cover crops successfully over the last even 30 years to work with young farmers, even old farmers transitioning to these practices, and to understand what it takes to be successful and to understand where the missteps might be so that we don't take the same steps. So we've really found that to be successful. The cost and reduction, we have what's called a puck from Climate Field View that gets plugged into your 9-pin diagnostic in the tractor and into an iPad. So it'll remotely track some of the data that we need to calculate the emissions as you go across your field. We're providing 50 pucks to our first 50 farmers, and that'll help them track the data that we need to calculate that GHG score. We'll also have equipment and product discounts on no-till equipment. If a farmer is interested in purchasing some Great Plains or other no-till equipment, we have some offers available for them. We're also working on some new agronomic tools. How do we make this data collection simpler? Right now, we're soil sampling the acres that are in our program. We had 1,200 fields last year. We sampled over 600 of them to understand that soil organic carbon. We measure the bulk density down about 30 centimeters and to measure that soil organic carbon. And we're looking at new technologies where we can implement towers to remotely measure this soil flux and environmental movement of carbon in the entire ecosystem. It also does compaction, moisture to help with irrigation systems. And we want that to be able to API into our system as well. That is, remotely transfer that data into our system so that we don't have to rely on 100% heavy soil sampling. We can utilize some science, and it's not really new technology, but we're connecting it to help support that data collection process in our program. And then the new revenue stream as these environmental markets develop. The investment that Perdue is making here is Perdue private money. So this can be stacked on other government and state programs, which we feel is a little unique and shows the commitment by the Perdues to do the right thing and to move down the sustainability and to learn together with our downstream partners. And, you know, we're targeting 100,000 acres for this year. This is a heat map of where our farms are located. We really are focused on these sort of 5 states around the Bay, and we've had really great opportunity and involvement by farmers, and we're really excited about that. 82% of them do no-till and cover crops. Of course, the state programs certainly help support that. 16% do no-till and 2% do just cover crops. So, you know, we are working with farmers that are sustainable and are moving in that right direction, and we're extremely excited to support them. We're also working on some diversification strategies. So it's not just about soil organic carbon, even though that's our largest portion of our scope 3. When we offer downstream partners to partner with Perdue and the farmer, we want that downstream partner to invest in different opportunities that can help lower and strengthen and drive efficiencies across the supply chain. And that investment, we want to go back to the farmers as well. So we're working with the Alliance on Chesapeake Bay on an enhanced biodiversity opportunity. We're going to announce that on March 5th as well. We're working on enhanced rock weathering. I'll talk to you a little bit about that in the future slide and what that means. That pilot is underway as well. And then we continue our supply chain efficiencies, looking at alternative energy sources, alternative transportation. We just purchased a brand new barge to move oil from Chesapeake to the refinery here in Salisbury. It'll remove about 200 trucks for every barge that we use. So we're working on ways to develop that efficiency and to lower our carbon emissions related to that. As I mentioned, this enhanced biodiversity, very similar to the Crothers family, implementing those riparian forest buffers. We're also working on a pasture-raised poultry project as well, where we're utilizing regenerative ag and allowing birds to do what birds do, right? Eat bugs and scratch the dirt and poop on the ground where they're natural. And we're excited about working on these initiatives. This is a picture of our pasture bird concept. It's basically a mobile coop that's powered by solar, and it's on wheels, and it moves about 1 acre a day. And you can really see the definitive line here as this greenhouse sort of moves forward. They, of course, have security. They've got food. They've got water. Of course, this needs to be in a little more temperate zone. It's been cold in Georgia, so right now we're piloting in Georgia, and really, really successful at a lot of our downstream customers. Amazing to see the difference as this solar power greenhouse moves, the impact that it has on the acre behind it. And then we can move beef cattle in behind it for grazing purposes and really create that regenerative opportunity. So we're pretty excited to continue to work on this program and to see if we can help scale it to the future. The enhanced rock weathering is another strategy. This is a natural mineral that's mined in Norway. And you might say, well, why are we bringing Norway mineral to the US? It is an olivine product, so it's a magnesium silicate. It has a CCE of about 101%, so it's very similar to ag lime. That facility in Norway is run by solar power, total conveyance, and it's sitting on the largest deposit in the world, is really the main reason. And we work to import it into Chesapeake. We've got about 4,000 tons sitting in Chesapeake that'll go on the ground for testing. As I mentioned, it does move pH up. It is a magnesium-based mineral, so we do need to understand that soil that you're applying it to. If there's a high mag soil, we certainly need to understand that. So we soil sample before, we're soil sampling afterwards. We're testing the grain to ensure safety and reliability. But the product itself actually removes CO2 from the atmosphere, and it precipitates as a bicarbonate as it runs through the soil solution and deposits in the ocean, and creates and locks up carbon dioxide for over 100,000 years as mineral deposits on the ocean floor. It also helps deacidify the ocean as well, so there's ancillary benefit. But it can grab about 1.65 tons of CO2 per acre. This product would be applied every 2 years as well. Very similar to ag lime, so don't need separate equipment. It's a little dense, but it does spread pretty comparable. It does not cake. It does not, it might get a little hard surface on it, but from what we've seen, it does not cake into a solid block or anything. Really holds its shape and consistency pretty well. So we're excited to learn from this pilot this year. And then, as I mentioned, we are working on 6 other KPIs related to soil, biodiversity, circularity, animal welfare, the farmer, and water conservation. And we really want to hone in on what are the impact areas, where can we make a difference related to soil. See nutrient density here, obviously nutrient use efficiency, the GHG footprint, And how do we measure and ensure that we're making an impact on the dollars that we're putting on those acres? So we're developing these, and this list has been an amalgamation from multiple downstream partners of the data that they're looking for and requesting. So biodiversity, another super important area, integrated pest management programs, and just the data that we're collecting to generate the GHG and the carbon intensity scores, a lot of them can support these KPIs as well. Animal welfare still super, super important. We want to make sure our animals are free from those 5 stresses, freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from discomfort, freedom from pain, freedom from, to express natural behaviors, and freedom from fear and stress. So really, really fits into sustainability as well. Water conservation, super important in terms of conserving water, creating these riparian buffers, keeping soil where it needs to be, keeping nutrients where it should be, and reducing that leakage, I think is a really, really super important goal for us as we move forward. The circularity here as well, moving that manure back onto the farm. It's a really great source of nitrogen. I always said there's magic in litter, and we're excited about that. And then, ensuring that our farmers are healthy, right? Good agronomic practices, soil resiliency, building efficiency, and utilizing the data to be a resource for them, and to make sure that they have strong mental health and a good quality of life, free of stress as well. So we're going to continue to work in supporting our communities and farmers as it relates to tying in sustainability with the great products that we produce. And so where could this future for carbon innovation take us? 100,000 acres will produce about 700 million pounds of low carbon grain, which we'll have certified here by the end of 24. That'll produce about 25 million pounds of low carbon oil and about 200 million pounds of low carbon chicken breast. So what we're talking with downstream partners in a couple of years, we hope to be able to scale this program to 500,000 acres, which is a tall task. 3.5 billion pounds of grain will produce 125 million pounds of oil and 1 billion pounds of chicken. A billion, that's a B there, by the way, which is a lot of really, really great low carbon chicken. So what does the future hold? We really want to take sustainability and bring it into the great products that we produce. So regenerative ag, super, super important. On-farm solar, we have a few farmers now that are working on solar, feeding the grow out facilities with solar, working on source transparency, working with our upstream and downstream partners for transparency related to grain and the other products that we use, packaging, etc. Super important to reduce food waste and plastics by over 80%. We're working on a B100 pilot here for moving grains and birds this summer, and then continue to work on alternative energy opportunities. So just learning in this business has been unbelievable. And I've got the unique job of being able to work with farmers and then walk across the street and talk to a Costco. Really, really informative. They're really, really impressed with the work that farmers do. They understand that, and I think it's time to communicate it across our value chain. So that's what I have to share with you today, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll open it up for questions.
Thanks, Scott. I do see a note from Jenny in the chat about the U.S. grain sustainability certification and a link there. I jotted down a few questions myself as you were talking, and you had answered all of them by the time you got to the end of your presentation. So does anybody else have some questions for Scott?
I have a quick question.
Yeah, Alice.
So I guess my question is what are you seeing in consumers? And do you see that they have a willingness to pay more for sustainably produced food versus they are demanding to know more about how their food is produced, and they have that kind of that expectation? So do you see an opportunity for us to get a premium pricing versus consumer demand?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And we're still learning through that marketing data, especially as we talk to larger retailers. How can we mine that data? We're looking at a test and learn product. One of the products that I shared there on the slide, we'd like to put in a few stores and really measure who would buy it, how they see that product on the shelf, and be able to communicate what they're looking for. In our studies, we think the Gen Zers, which are the next generation, are going to demand that clean, healthy, sustainable product. And it's important too that we take a look at how do we elevate and scale sustainability too. We want it to be affordable so that it does compete with regular chicken on the shelf, right? And that helps downstream emissions. Clients downstream meet their goals as well, but it also pulls more sustainable products through the system. So how do we do that? Right now, the Gen Zers probably don't have a lot of money yet, but they're going to be the future, right? So we want to get out in front of it. We want to communicate the great things. And that's why I think a YouTube channel, I'm sorry, would be fantastic because I would watch it tomorrow and follow your journey. And I think that communication and tying it to the products that you produce is super, super critical. So yes, we think they'll pay a little more, but not a lot. Yes, they're definitely going to demand this traceability and being able to, from seed to fork, understand how their products are produced. And really, I think they're looking for that clean, healthy. We're one of the largest organic producers too. And we're mapping our organic too. We want to understand what that looks like. They do a lot of fantastic sustainable practices. And so we're excited to take a look at that production method as well. We'll have an idea of what all that looks like. But that's a really great question. And right now, we want to try to sort of poll that consumer and learn from them right now.
That is a great question. Richard Wilkins has a question in the chat that I'm going to need a little background on myself because I'm not familiar with the concept that he's talking about, but he asks if U.S. government regulations allow for book and claim methodology, would Perdue accept that in its Regen Ag program? And personally, I am not familiar with what the book and claim methodology means.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Richard. Thank you. And there's still a lot in terms of understanding what that 45Z. 45Z is a tax credit by a sustainable renewable producer that would buy a feedstock like corn for ethanol or soybeans for biofuel, sustainable aviation fuel potentially. And right now, as the guidance has come out after the last administration, right before we switched to the new one, basically gave us some guidelines that said you need to use mass balance, and that mass balance needs to be tracked through that entire system. Well, mass balance is great, and it certainly has. We're building a system to have that traceability, but the book and claim would be really, really important for farmers that grow grain, that feed animals, right? Because if they're feeding from a pile of grain and they use Regen Ag practices on maybe half of their grain, as this initial rule states, they'd have to keep that grain segregated. But if they fed it, then they would have to go and buy other grain, or if they had to keep it segregated, they would likely have to go buy other grain to feed their animals. And that's where it's sort of a little gray area. So that's where the book and claim, book that you have this many bushels associated with this many acres of Regen Ag, and allow that farmer to reach those new markets utilizing a book and claim strategy. So I know the industry is working towards communicating that. There's an open time frame here for us to communicate that to the USDA and the IRS, I guess, as well. So that's a great question. I'm not exactly sure if someone participating in a Regen Ag program can also participate in that carbon intensity, but yes, our system will provide the farmer the ability to participate in Regen and or that book and claim. So that is a great question.
For the 100,000 acres that you guys are looking for, is that kind of a first come, first serve sign up, or do you have specific target areas that you're looking at? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's really the 5 states around the Chesapeake Bay, and as of yesterday, we're almost sold out. So, which is really, really exciting to be in that position, and excited to work with farmers that are really rallying around this. And yes, I will share that. I don't know if I have a link to that, but I probably I can share my email, and you can certainly email me if you have an interest in coming to the summit, and I will send you an invite and um, I'll put my email in the chat here, and just send me an email if you'd like to participate, if you'd like to learn more about our software and our programs. It'd be a great time. We really look at this summit to bring farmers together with our new tech folks as well as downstream partners that'll be there, like Mars and Aramark, ADUSA. So we'll have just a really great networking opportunity and just really the ability to share information and ideas moving forward. So just email me if you'd like me to send you an invite and an agenda.
Thanks for that. All right, so from Steve, farmers are always concerned about our marketing options for soybeans outside of Plenish. How is Perdue positioning itself to be more competitive from a purchasing perspective?
That's a really, really super important question. And, here again, it's about markets, creating market opportunities, push and pull strategies, right? I think this ability to connect the farmer to the consumer product allows us to pull that business and sustainability through the system, creating opportunities and allowing us hopefully to be more competitive from a purchasing standpoint, because we're going to need to support those products that we're producing. So it's really something that's important, and there's a lot that goes into the grain part, and I'm not an expert there, so I'm really sorry about that, but I know how to grow it. But in terms of marketing, that is I leave that to some other folks. But I think there is an opportunity for us to look at Plenish, and we're working on additional opportunities with additional brands, and how can we create a pull strategy on some downstream product that might allow us to help elevate and create opportunities for farmers, whether it's regen or carbon intensity or a specialty, high oleic product. So that's a great question, Stephen. I can put you in touch with some other experts if you'd like.
Thanks. Any other questions for Scott?
Thank you all very much. We appreciate the support and look forward to working with you all.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. You guys have some really exciting work coming online, and looking forward to seeing how that evolves over time too.